Hello and welcome to the Roundtable Podcast. My name is Rafi. Joining me today is Shogun to talk about Budo, the way of the warrior, martial arts in its essence and fundamentals based on 20 years of mixed martial arts training in judo, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, Muay Thai, kickboxing, and MMA. Please follow us on the Roundtable Podcast YouTube channel. Please join the Roundtable Discord where we record daily events, voice chats, general chats with crazy fun people. Shogun, without further ado, thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me, Rafi, and thanks for the introduction.
No problem. Where would you like to start us off in Budo, the way of the warrior?
Okay, so for the first thing I want to do is explain there's two terms, Budo and Bushido. In a general sense, Budo means, so Bushido means martial arts. It means like the way in which you fight and the way in which you wage combat. There's noisiness outside my window, so I'm going to close it. So Bushido, in a sense, means martial arts. Budo, in a sense, is broader. It's the lifestyle or the way of life of a warrior. And the reason that matters is because Budo is more than just how you fight. It's how you live as a warrior. Okay? Now, what are my qualifications to talk about this? Very, very little. I have no real qualifications to talk about this. But compared to the average person, I have a lot. So all I can say is I've been doing martial arts of many kinds for 20 years. At the same time, I am not a black belt in anything. I'm not any kind of fucking grandmaster in anything. I'm just a guy who loves martial arts and combat sports. And I've dedicated a large part of my life to this. And I've competed in multiple martial arts, but I am by no means an expert or a master. So that just needs to be understood. And if I was to be honest, I would call myself an intermediate martial artist, or maybe a low intermediate martial artist. So, in the area between green, blue, or purple, depending on the belt system that you use, that's where I would be. I'm not a brown belt. I'm not a black belt, right? I'm not a white belt. I'm not a yellow belt. So somewhere between green, blue, and purple is where you're going to find me. So I'm just saying that to just kind of identify that I'm not claiming to be an expert, but I do have a lot of background and a lot of experience, and I've had the opportunity to train with the best coaches and the best training partners and the best institutions in the world, for sure. That I can say. And I've learned a lot about the meta, right? People talk about a meta, right? And it's like, okay, fighting is a set of problems. They call it like physical chess, but there's a meta to it, right? And that's what I kind of want to talk about today is the meta of fighting, the meta of combat, meaning the system of logic that unifies unarmed combat.
So, what is the meta that unifies unarmed combat, and how did you learn it?
Okay, so this may sound pedantic, it may sound boring, I don't know, but if you actually listen to this, it's pretty amazing. So, first of all, martial arts, fighting, first of all, martial means war, right? Mar is the god of war, martial, war. So it is the art of war. So when you say martial arts, you're talking about the art of war. Well, war obviously is, as Machiavelli said, inherently brutal, and there's no point in trying to make it less brutal. The more brutal you make it, the more humane it is, because the quicker it ends, right? There's nothing to be humane. So there's nothing humane about combat, right? This is the art of breaking bones. This is the art of inflicting pain and damage upon your opponent to the point that they die or submit. That's what combat is. And it's a martial art. And so it is about killing and killing effectively and killing efficiently and killing quickly and killing securely without yourself dying. That's what it is. And you have to understand that. And there should be no confusion about that whatsoever. And that applies even in competition. Because the UFC, for example, which actually has rules and nobody's ever died in the UFC, every single UFC fight is a lethal contest where one or the other could die because of the nature of what they're engaged in. And even if they don't die, they'll suffer permanent, irreversible brain damage. So my point is, Martial arts is the art of killing your opponent as quickly and efficiently and effectively and one-sidedly as humanly possible. And now that then divides into two systems of combat. One is called striking and one is called grappling. Grappling is wrestling, judo, sambo, and jiu-jitsu. Grappling is arm bars, kimuras, omoplatas, all the variations of blood chokes, and all the variations of submissions, ankle picks, leg locks, heel hooks. All of that is grappling. The various ways in which you can twist a person like a pretzel until the body breaks. That's called grappling. As well as the takedowns, that's all that. And then you have striking. That's kicking. And that's why you have Muay Thai, which is called the way of 8 weapons. Well, what are those 8 weapons? You have two fists, right? Right and left, that's 2. 2 feet, right and left, that's 4. 2 knees, right and left, that's 6. 2 elbows, right and left, that's 8. Plus, you can headbutt, that's 9. People forget 10 and 11, which is the shoulders, which Conor McGregor showed in his fight with Cowboy Cerrone because he rocked Cowboy with his shoulders. So it's actually the way of 11 weapons. There's 11 striking implements that you have access to. 2 shoulders, 2 knees, 2 elbows, 2 fists, 2 feet, and your head. So there's all that. And then you have your grappling, takedowns, and then once you take someone down, you can do submissions like chokes, arm bars, leg locks, heel hooks, ankle picks, which are all based on using torsion or like physics to just snap people's bones. Or you realize that there's 2 veins, the carotid arteries, that go up and down the left and right side of the neck, and they carry the blood to the brain. And there's a whole series of ways that you can interfere with the flow of blood to the brain. And if you do that, within a very short number of seconds, the person will go unconscious. And if you simply hold that, they will then die. So that's called grappling. So the combination of striking and grappling is called MMA. And MMA is the greatest system of fighting that's ever existed. There's never been anything like it. All through history, people have developed certain aspects of martial arts, but they have never before the modern time put it all together into one cohesive system and figured it out. So the modern person studying MMA is on a higher level than any martial artist who has ever walked the planet Earth. And that's why fighters like John Jones, George St. Pierre, or some of these other fighters today, nobody has ever been their equal ever before. And that's why it's such an exciting sport.
So, do you want to take us back to the beginning? Where did you start and what martial arts did you learn?
So, I began because I went to the University of Winnipeg collegiate, which was actually a castle. It had like battlements and castles, and like it was like a castle, right? And they had the Bison Center, and there was a series of martial arts. So the first one I did was Taekwondo, and I learned quite good kicks because Taekwondo has really good kicks that use hip flexibility and good kicking technique to give you really nice like snap kicks and turning back kicks. So I got really nice kicking technique from Taekwondo, and that was my very first martial art. Then I went into something called Shido Ryu, and Shido Ryu was more or less like a homebrew version of Krav Maga, but it was actually pretty sweet. So for example, an example of something we would do in Shido Ryu, they'd be say, okay, well, this is the person you're supposed to save, and you have to get them out of this dangerous area, and everyone else is trying to stop you. So you're trying to protect this person and extract them while everybody else is punching you and kicking you and grabbing you and holding you back. And you're trying to drag this person out of that situation. That would be an example of something we do. Or it would be like they grab you from behind, they grab your nuts, they grab you around the neck. It was all based on like rape defense and like hardcore street self-defense. And I also did Krav Maga. And in Krav Maga, we learned how to do like, if someone pulls a pistol on you, how to reverse the pistol, or if they pull a knife on you, what to do, or if they swing a baseball bat at you, how to take the baseball bat. We did all that with Krav, as well as how to stab people and shit. that was Krav, but my basic background was judo, and I did judo provincially and interprovincially, and I competed, and I won gold, silver, and bronze medals in judo. I fought the national champion. I beat black belts. I beat brown belts in my early tournaments when I was just young. And then later I started competing in jiu-jitsu, and I had success and failure in jiu-jitsu as well, just like I did in judo. I went to TriStar, which is the best martial arts gym in the world. I trained with Firas Zahabi, who's the best martial arts coach in the world. I trained with George St. Pierre. I didn't lay hands on him, but I trained under the same roof as him. I met breast shoulders with Vitor Belfort. I rolled with Elias Theodoro. I met Owen St. Pierre. Owen St. Pierre. I mean, I met my heroes. I trained with them. I met them. And I trained in the best place in the world, and I lived there. And I did nothing but train every day. Wake up, drink a fucking energy drink, smoke some weed, and fucking go train. I helped Mirsad Bektik prepare for his fights. The dude fucking gave me brain damage. He elbowed me so many times in the head. Dude, I should never have left. I should have just stayed there, man. It was the best time.
That sounds amazing. So was there a turning point in your fighting career? Maybe a point that you like realized something immense and you became a real warrior, or?
No, I know I'm pretty good. I got as far as signing my paperwork to allow me to compete, and then I got sick and I never actually took the fight, but I still kind of want to. My goal is to sort of take between 1 and 3 fights with the MCL, Mercenary Combat League. So if I win, I'll take another fight. If I win, I'll take another fight. So if I win 3 in a row, I'll retire 3-0, right? That's kind of my plan. And just have like 3 local regional fights in the MCL. And yeah, there's a group called WAMA, the Winnipeg Association of Mixed Martial Arts. I've already trained with CFC, Canadian Fighting Center, and Gracie Humeda. So I've already trained with all the major organizations except WAMA, which means they'll look at me as a traitor, which is annoying. But like, it's not about that. Like, you're trying to learn how to fight, and people are trying to teach you. So it's kind of annoying that they look at it as like you're a traitor or you're betraying like a team or whatever. I get it, but like, I'm just trying to learn how to fight. Like, I'm trying to train. Like, even when I went to TriStar, which is known as like the best gym in the world, my coach at the time was mad at me. He was like, "What, you think I can't teach you this?" I'm like, "Well, no, I'm not saying like you're not a good coach, but like, I have an opportunity to go train with the best in the world. I want to take it. And it's not an insult to you." But they kind of look at it that way. But regardless, I'm glad I did it. The only thing I regret is that I came back. I should have stayed. My friends were like, "Shogun, you're going to go back? Like, just stay, dude. You're here. You're training. You're doing it. You're living the life. Like, why would you go back?" And I was like, "My job, dude. Like, my job is good. I like my job. I don't want to lose my job." Biggest mistake of my life. Like, I could have stayed there. I could have been like competing, who knows?
So have you went over all the different types of have you went through all the different types of fighting styles that you've learned already? You learned jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, kickboxing, MMA.
So Taekwondo is not a good style of fighting. Taekwondo is 70% Bushido, 30%. So I use the term Bushido, and what this refers to is bullshit, like bullshit, bullshito, right? Because Bushido is the way of the warrior, Bushido is the way of bullshit, right? And there's an awful lot of that. So Taekwondo is about 70% Bushido, 30% Budo, meaning it's about 30% functional. Karate, about 60% Bushido, 40% Budo. Jiu-Jitsu is 100% Budo. Muay Thai, 100% Budo. Boxing, 100% Budo. Kickboxing, 100% Budo. Krav Maga, 100% Budo. So in other words, there's some that are just pure real fight, and then there's some that have some real things to offer, but a lot of bullshit involved. And then there's a bunch that are just pure bullshit. like Qigong or Aikido or Dim Mak or Gong Fu or, all this other shit. So basically, what you need to do is break fighting down and understand that mixed martial arts is a complete combat system. So every fight starts on your feet. Okay. So when you're doing jujitsu, you start on your knees, you start on the ground. That doesn't happen in real life. You start on your feet. So every fight, you need to think about, I am facing my opponent. Assuming you only have one opponent, you could have two opponents, you could have three opponents, right? But assuming you only have one, you are on your feet and he is on his feet. So you can engage him with striking, or you can engage him with grappling, and you can defeat him through striking, or you can defeat him through grappling. And if you defeat him through grappling, you're defeating him through submissions. And submissions include chokes, and submissions include, submissions like arm bars, kimuras, omoplatas, heel hooks, knee bars, leg locks, ankle picks. So you're either going to bend the guy's skeleton like a pretzel till his bones break, or you're going to cut off the blood flow to his brain till he dies, or you're going to hit him so hard in the head that you create a brain whiplash where his brain is going to bounce inside his skull, and then his brain is going to swell up inside the limited space of his cranium, and he's going to die. And you can usually do that by a single takedown. If you slam a guy down with a judo throw, I don't know what the fuck they're doing outside my building, you'll break his skull and his brain will bounce.
Wow. Do you want to talk about, you said you fought a champion, a provincial champion or a national champion. Do you want to talk about some of your more professional fights?
My fights?
Yeah, in competition.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have much to brag about in this regard. However, I have won gold, silver, and bronze in both judo and jiu-jitsu at the provincial and interprovincial level. So when I was in judo, again, my coach was a woman named Shireen Razak, and Shireen Razak was an Egyptian, ethnically Egyptian Canadian Olympian. So she was an Egyptian judoka who was competing for Canada in the Olympics, and she had won medals. I think she won bronze or silver, but again, Olympic medalist. So real fucking warrior. And she was hated. Like all the other coaches hated her because Egyptian judo is so different from Japanese judo. It's like polar opposites. So I'm an Egyptian judoka, right? Because I learned it from Shireen Razak and her husband Basil. But Basil was chill as fuck. But anyways, they hated Shireen because she would scream and she would yell and she was crazy because she was fiery, right? And that was the way that she taught me to fight too. What was I talking about?
I just asked you to go over some of the crazier fights that you went through in competition.
Okay, yeah. So I didn't want to compete. I just was like, I just want to, get in shape or like learn some shit or whatever. Like, I don't want to compete. And she's like, well, we're a competition gym. And if you're not going to compete, we don't want you. You're not welcome here. So she literally told me, she's like, if you're not going to compete and be part of the University of Winnipeg competition team, you can't be here. Like, she was like, you can't be a casual. It's not an option. There's no casuals allowed, right? So then I had to compete in Kenora and other neighboring provinces. I don't know what the fuck they're doing inside. But anyways, I went to a competition in Kenora. And in that, I was only a yellow belt, and I was probably weighing about 170, 180 at the most. And yellow belt is like the lowest belt. It goes white, yellow, green. So this would have been very early in my career. But the thing is, when they have a competition, if there isn't enough people to fill out your division, they'll combine divisions, right? So even though I was only a yellow belt, they said, well, there's nobody else in your category, so we're going to put you up against brown belts and black belts. And so they literally put me as a 180 or 170 yellow belt against brown belts and black belts. And in that tournament, I actually beat a brown belt and a black belt. The black belt was actually from my own gym. I choked him out. I got him from behind, and I choked him out. He tapped out. I had him from like a top position choke, and I lapel choked him. He tapped out in front of his son. which was awkward. And then I fought this brown belt, and he ran off the mat in the middle of the fight and puked in the garbage can. And because he ran off the mat, I automatically won. So because he puked, I won. So I don't know if he had a flu or if he was just out of condition. But in that fight, I was a yellow belt, and in that day, I beat a black belt and a brown belt in that one day, which was pretty cool. And I fought the national champion. And as I told you, I made it like 2 rounds with him, and then he went like, oof, and then he fucking threw me and I lost. But I basically, as a yellow belt, I beat a black belt, I beat a brown belt, and I went 2 rounds with a national champ. And that was one of my like first ever tournaments. True story.
Wow. So, in your blurb for this podcast, you said you had some takeaways for people who weren't really fighters that you learned from fighting. What would those philosophies be?
Well, right. And again, I don't know. I'm sorry. There's someone like just pounding outside my
Yeah, I can kind of hear it.
That's ridiculous. But the point is, martial arts are a form of self-defense, but they are both more and less than that. So martial arts are a system of personal development, you know, your discipline, your willpower, your integrity, your honor. And there's a whole system that we've laid out: courage, willpower, discipline, honor, integrity, honesty, loyalty, benevolence. This is what we call, you know, Bushido. Self-defense is not only combat, because by the time you've come to combat, you've already failed to avoid violence, and you probably had many chances to avoid violence. So don't think that the way to avoid violence or to triumph is to fight and win. You should always be trying to avoid fighting. However, the ultimate way to avoid fighting is to be known as the superior fighter. Because if people know that fighting you is guaranteed to end in defeat, they will not wish to fight you. Therefore, you will have the option of peaceful diplomacy. If you're a weak target, nobody wants your peaceful diplomacy. So if you want to even have the option of peaceful diplomacy, everyone should know that you could kill all of them. That way, they will gladly accept whatever nonviolent offer you give them, because they know that your violent offer will be worse for them. So this is translated as walk softly and carry a big stick. Be polite and carry a loaded gun. Be nice and be ready to kill. And, you know, when you do strike, Sun Tzu said, let your plans be dark and impenetrable. And when you fall, fall like a thunderbolt. So don't let anybody really understand you, but let them know that when you do decide to act, your actions are decisive and fatal. Because only thereby can you guarantee any kind of peace.
Wow. So do you feel like fighting has given you more confidence day to day, like walking around the streets and stuff?
Absolutely. I can walk into virtually any situation and project confidence that other people automatically feel and respond to. They literally will say, you walk like a person who can fight. They can see it. This has been tested forensically. They'll ask people who mug people, and they'll say, well, how do you choose your victims? And they'll say, well, some people you can just tell, like, you don't want to fuck with that person. Just the way they carry themselves, the way they walk, the way they look around, you know they're going to be way too much trouble, right? That's the kind of person you need to be. The kind of person that any predator or any criminal is going to look at and say, that guy is way too much trouble. I don't want that smoke. And, you know, that's what they say, fuck around, get the smoke, right? If you really want the smoke, you can get it, right? And you might kill me. Sure, you might kill me. But is it going to be worth it? Or are you going to suffer so much in the process of killing me that you gain nothing? So this is called resiliency, or being hard to kill, you know?
Yeah, making yourself not a mark. Like I lived in a big city with a lot of homeless people, and the only night I ever got approached was one night I was walking home nearly crying, like ever. I held myself so high, and the one time I walked home like shitty, I got like approached and tried to it was a weird encounter, but I know exactly what you mean. You're not a mark when you walk yourself that way.
Well, I mean, literally, if you are crazy, if you have that self-confidence, people will not fuck with you. Like, they look at you to assess the threat level that you possess. And if you're not afraid, they think, holy shit, this guy's not afraid. There must be a reason he's not afraid. But you don't want to have a delusional self-confidence. That's going to get you smoked. But there is like a fine line there of just knowing that like you're crazy enough that like, yes, of course you can challenge me, and yes, of course you can beat me, but it's never going to be like a rational cost benefit analysis for you. You're always going to be taking a dangerous chance that you don't need to take. And you'll find that people will avoid that. So like when I was in a manic episode, I was partying and all the bars in my neighborhood closed, and I didn't want to stop partying. So I said to the cab driver, I said, take me to wherever there's a party. So he drove me to like a very dangerous like part of my city where the rules don't apply kind of thing, and dropped me off. And I walked in, there was all these gang members, and they're all gang members of like a race that's like different than mine. And they were all outside like smoking and whatever. And I literally walked out there and was like, I'm going to walk out there hoping that one of them tries to fight me because I want to fight all of them right now. And I walked out and they're all like, yeah, bro, we love you, man, like hugging me and clapping me on the back. Because like they respected my fearlessness. They respect the craziness of you as a white guy walking out in the middle of a bunch of First Nations gang members. They're just like, this guy's fucking nuts. Like, it's hard to explain, but fearlessness and craziness that's why the Joker is wild, right? Ace may be the highest card in the deck is the ace, but Joker is wild. So you want to be that Joker if you can't be that ace.
Wow. Do you have any maybe closing remarks before we open it up to crowd the questions?
Well, no, we can open up the questions.
All right, sweet. If anyone has any questions relating to Muay Thai fighting, Bushido, anything Shogun's talked about here, I'm sure you'd love to hear them. If not, I can keep asking for a little bit.
So I actually have a legit question.
Go ahead.
So like when we talk about Bushido, obviously we know what those are, but do you think that Bushido has some sort of benefit if it gives you a positive philosophical outlook on your life, even if the fighting you're learning is bullshit?
Okay, well, I need to clarify something. So, two very similar sounding terms, totally different meaning. Bushido is real. Bushido is what it's all about.
Yeah, I was using Bullshido.
Exactly, right. Okay, so as long as we're clear that Bullshido is LARPing. What Bullshido is men, usually white men, white or Asian men over 40 years of age, who rather than take the time and effort to learn the difficult, dangerous, and arduous arts of martial arts, just declare themselves grandmasters because it's gratifying to their ego to do so. So they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm a 9th Dan, no touch, kill, dim Mac master. And all they're doing is like, they just want to be. They don't have any credentials. They don't have any victories. They don't have any training. They just want to be that. So it's just LARPing. It's just wish fulfillment bullshit. And it's completely ridiculous. And it's hilarious. And that's why God bless like that Chinese guys, Chinese MMA fighters going out just like kicking these guys' asses. But he's getting in trouble because he's embarrassing the Chinese martial arts, supposedly. But that's stupid as well.
I guess I'll add. Do you think it has some positive benefit if someone goes into that, but eventually moves into more legitimate martial arts? They sort of use Bushido as the jumping point.
Here's the thing, right? So who's going to win in a fight? A guy who's trained in karate or a guy who has no training? The guy who's trained in karate is going to win. And who's going to win in a fight? The guy who's trained in taekwondo or the guy who's got no training? The person in taekwondo is going to win. So then you could say, well, it's not Bushido then, right? Because it works. But no, it doesn't, because it doesn't work against other martial arts. It only works against untrained people. So the test of martial arts is not, can you kick an untrained person's ass? It's, does your martial art hold up against other martial arts? And that's why we have the UFC, and that's why we have MMA, and that's how we know what works and what doesn't work. So Taekwondo is like 90% bullshit. But if you're a trained Taekwondo fighter, you're going to kick 90% of people's asses. Your fighting style is basically garbage, but at least you have a fighting style, so you're still going to beat 90% of people. So, if your standard is, can I beat an untrained person? Yeah, you can do it with Wing Chun or Jeet Kune Do or Aikido. But if you want to beat another fighter, you're gonna get smoked. And that's all that matters, is what will beat another fighter. Like Aikido is not going to beat Jiu-Jitsu. Dim Mak is not going to beat Muay Thai. Karate is not going to beat wrestling, et cetera, et cetera. And that's just the way it is. And that's why we have this whole system. The whole point of it was to figure out what works, and we figured it out. And by the way, we're on like UFC 1000 now. Like we've literally had over 1,000 UFC events. Like the sophistication of the studying of human combat is so far beyond what people understand. Like we know how to fight now. We know. Like we've been doing this for a minute. It's not a fucking question anymore.
All right, I've got another one. So let's take a legitimate MMA style like Krav Maga, which has become very popular because it does work. When something like Krav Maga becomes so popular that everyone and their mother is calling themselves a Krav Maga instructor, how can you tell if someone is legitimate or if they're just LARPing as being an expert in Krav Maga?
Well, basically, you would want some kind of qualification that was not based on Krav Maga, but was based on military service. So what you would have is someone who's part of the IDF, right? So if someone was part of the Israeli Defense Force, then I know for a fact that they studied Krav Maga as part of their training with the Israeli Defense Force. But if you're telling me you're a Krav Maga instructor and you did not serve with the Israeli Defense Force, then I have no reason to pay you any attention whatsoever. And then if you're talking about like higher levels, then there's going to be like elite divisions of the IDF, et cetera, et cetera. But the bare minimum would be that you learned to Krav from the IDF. If you're some fucking, middle-aged woman or man who claims to be a Krav Maga expert, you're probably a fucking delusional person. But if you learned it from the IDF, then it's of a reasonable quality of instruction.
I come from the school of nut grabbing and eye poking. Grab them nuts. See how fast a man breaks. Oh, grab them nuts.
Zach?
I have something to add, just quickly. I think that what?
Well, getting kicked in the liver. If you get kicked in the liver, it doesn't matter how tough you are, how strong you are, how dedicated you are. If you get clipped in the liver, your whole body just shuts down. You just go completely limp.
To add to the point about how to tell the legitimate or more dedicated or very serious type instructors, there's two types of instruction dojos, whatever you might call them, for every style, and there's a type of masters that only aim to pay to get your belt. Basically, you get your belts for every year, regardless of your performance. You just have to attend their school and appear out through the year or through whatever period of time they need. And then there's other instructors who make you earn it, because my master at Korean Hapkido would literally, there's a girl who's been there for 3 years and she still has her yellow belt because he will not upgrade her until she actually gets to the certain level of forms and things that's teaching.
I mean, that's why they call it McDojos, because in Taekwondo and karate, and Kung Fu are notorious for having worthless belts, where it's just like if you just show up and pay your bills, you're going to get these promotions Whereas judo, jujitsu, like you're gonna fucking bleed out your fucking eyeballs to get those fucking belts, and it doesn't matter how much you pay or how long you've been there. If you're not earning those belts, you're not getting them. But like you can be a black belt in Taekwondo by age 6. You can be a black belt in karate by age 9. But to be a jujitsu black belt, you're looking at age 45, 50. Like you've had like 6 fucking knee breaks by the time you get that belt. There is no comparison. Like that's why I call it a McDojo. Karate, Taekwondo belts are fucking meaningless compared to jujitsu and judo belts, and that's a fact.
Well, I mean, they all have their purpose, you know. Taekwondo is great for distance and teaching you how to properly shift your momentum in your feet when you're kicking, and karate is great for you know, straight striking, quick striking. Jiu-jitsu is great for ground techniques, and judo is great for grappling when you're on your feet, getting the advantage point from there. You know, they all have their different purpose. It'd be better just to be mixed martial artist, where you have a good understanding of fighting and vulnerability. You know, like I said, I've been training myself since I was a little boy, but I'm still going for your nuts. And I'm going to tell you before the fight happens that if I get your dick in my mouth, I'm going to bite it off, because I don't want to fight you. I don't want to fight you. I want you to be afraid of me. That way we don't have to fight, right? So if we don't have to fight, then we're cool, right? Then I trained myself hard enough so that you didn't want to fight me, and I won, right? So don't fight me. I'll bite your fucking dick off. That's how it works.
Don't fight me, or I'll bite your dick off. Exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah, Bruce Lee, you know, I remember he had this video of his students putting him in a headlock, or he was putting them in a headlock, and they couldn't get out of it. It was like a rear naked, right? And then he had them put it in it. And you know how he got out of it? He bit the shit out of him. He said, I'll get out of it. Watch. They put him in it. He just started biting the shit out of them wherever he could. They couldn't hold on to him.
Well, there's a horrible amount of banging going on outside my apartment. I apologize for that. But what I want to say is,
I apologize, Shogun. I'll try to keep it down.
If you have grappling ability, you can modify the force that you are using to respond to a threat from total like coddling them like a baby to absolutely killing them. So that's why grappling is so superior to striking. Because if you strike someone, right? So let's say like a woman attacks you and she's crazy, she's schizophrenic, or she's on meth, and she attacks you. And so all you know how to do to defend yourself is you punch her, right? She comes at you with a broken bottle, so you punch her. You give her a black eye. Now there's a woman with a black eye. You're a man. They say, oh my God, you punched this woman. You gave her a black eye. What's wrong with you? You're a monster, right? You go to jail. If you're capable of grappling, you grab her behind the back of the neck, you grab her by the back of the elbow, you take her to the ground, you cradle her like a baby, you lay her down on the ground, you pin her down, she can't move, she can't hurt herself, she can't hurt you. You don't put any bruise on her, there's no mark, there's no damage. So in other words, like striking is very, very primitive and like damaging compared to grappling. Grappling is very sophisticated. You can control people, you can pin them, you can submit them without actually hurting them and without leaving even a mark on them. So that is why I will always say, although you must learn striking and you must love striking, grappling is absolutely the superior aspect of martial arts, and judo is the most efficient form of martial arts, because with judo, any throw, any single throw, a hip throw, a leg throw, will be fatal. It will be the end of any fight. So if you want the most efficient victory, you want judo. Jiu-jitsu is great if you go to the ground, but if you're effective enough with judo, you don't even need jiu-jitsu. So that's what I will say. Judo all the way. Good enough at judo. It's a one-hit kill. And I don't know. Hopefully
one-hit kill. Fuck, dude, I have hip checked people into another lifetime before. They certainly were. They were not feeling too good about it afterwards, but they weren't dead. You know, I've had people try to rear naked choke me from behind, and I've pulled them all the way over and slammed them on their backs from my back, and they still lived. I mean,
well, yeah, no, I'm not saying you're going to kill them all the time, but what I'm saying is if you actually do, I can't remember the terms in Japanese, but there's 3 different kinds of throws that give you points in a judo tournament. And a sotogari or whatever, it's like you slam their whole back on the ground. Now, that doesn't kill a person because it's on a mat. Like there's like an absorbing mat. But if you do that same technique to someone on concrete, on like a road or a street or a sidewalk, or
they're going to be disabled.
They are going to die. Their brain is going to bounce so hard in their skull. So the only reason that people don't die when that happens in competition is because you're on a mat designed to absorb that impact. But if I do a full-blown judo throw on you, full-blown, and I don't hold back, and we're on a hardwood floor, like right now I'm in my apartment, I have hardwood floors, or on concrete, or on a road, your brain is going to fucking come out of the back of your head. Your fucking skull is going to crack open. That's how dangerous judo is. If I do a judo throw on you and we're not on like a specially designed judo mat, your brain is going to come out. It's going to be on the ground.
Now, you see people in UFC cages get slammed and they go unconscious, right? So yeah, I mean, getting slammed is a devastating move. And
they're on a resilient mat that's designed to absorb it. Imagine that on fucking pavement. Imagine that on asphalt. Imagine if I take you, lift you off your feet, and throw you down on your fucking head on concrete. Your skull is going to crack, and your brain is going to come out, and you are going to die.
Oh, naivety. I love it.
There's no naivety about it, my dude. You cannot survive it. What you can do is have good break falls, but even with the best of break falls, you do not want to be trying that on concrete, asphalt, hardwood, linoleum. If there's no give in the surface that you're landing on, then your brain is taking a lot of damage.
We had a guy in another voice chat yesterday tell a story about how he got into a bar fight, and he's a massive man. He picked up another man and ragdolled him into the concrete until the police arrived, and the man's crippled for life. And the human body is super resilient. You'd be surprised at how much damage it can take. And
well, that's the thing. People go to bars, they have a few drinks, they feel it's called machismo culture, right? Especially Latin American, Spanish people. So they go, okay, you insulted my honor in some which way. We must fight. They throw a punch. That one punch clips the guy on the jaw. It whiplashes the head to the side. The guy, it's a flash knockout. So the guy goes knocked out. He falls. Then his head hits the ground and bounces. And then his brain swells up and he dies.
Yeah,
you get phone call. So literally all you do is you go outside of a Mexican bar. You've been drinking tequila. You throw one punch, you clip the guy in the jaw, and you get a murder charge, and you go away for like 20 years. It happens all the time.
Yeah, it does.
Like, it's so freakishly easy to kill somebody. Like, when you look at MMA, you think, oh, yeah, you can beat the shit out of somebody. They're going to be fine. Yeah, because there's mats, and there's doctors, and there's referees. But if you punch someone outside of a bar, and they fall, and their head hits that concrete, their head will bounce, their brain will bounce, it will swell up, and they'll die. And then they'll say, you murdered that guy. And it happens all the time. That's why, like, MMA fighters do not street fight, because they know, like, your whole life is going down the toilet.
Anyone have anything else to add?
No. I forgot we were doing a podcast.
I think we had a good discussion. Please subscribe to the Roundtable Podcast YouTube channel. Please join the Roundtable Discord. Subscribe to our 4 other YouTube channels. Follow our BitChute. Check out our merch store. Thank you so much, the live audience, for being here. Thank you, Shogun, for doing this event. And yeah,
fantastic.
we can now hop up to the Roundtable voice chat.